First of all, what are the prospects for him personally, Vladimir Putin personally, as things start to go wrong in Ukraine? I'm just wondering if there are any internal pressures on him, or do we even know that because of the difficulty in understanding what's going on around him?
There's less known about what's going on inside the innermost Russian elite than for 30, 40, 50 years. He's very, very, very tight about his personal security. During COVID, which is still going on, he removed himself even from most of his ministers and kept himself out at his various country residences. So we don't know as much as we need to know, but we do know that Russia has a talent for surprising us. And those street demonstrations about the partial mobilization that occurred just a few days ago, they're really bad news for Putin.
Elaborate on that.
Well, I think that until the last few weeks, most Russians regarded this war as happening 1,000 miles away. And the army was fighting it. And in the normal way of things, countries get patriotic at times of war. But when young men and middle-aged men who were reservists were suddenly called up, they and their families had to think hard about what this war really meant and what the chances were of the reservists coming back without wounds or perhaps in coffins. So that really sparked a trigger for many Russians to think, is this man really trustable? Is this war really worthwhile? My risking my life or my son going to war and risking his life in regard to capturing this amount of land in eastern Ukraine. And I think that's what's dangerous for Putin.
So is that enough, do you think, to make people in Russia rise up against him and be able to overthrow him? Is that enough of a catalyst?
No, not as yet. Not as yet. You're right to ask that. We just can't tell. But when you have autocratic regimes like this, the change comes very suddenly, and it takes even the country itself by surprise. And then people start being more confident. The trouble's going to be, though, who might come next. And I'm not saying that he's going to be ejected from power. It's all uncertain. But take the situation a year ago. Russia was very, very stable. And I don't think we can say that it's stable now.
Is there succession planning in Russia?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely not. And that's the last thing he's going to do on his birthday. He's going to want ice cream and jelly. He's not going to want someone coming in saying, here's your successor, Mr. Putin. You better start training him up to do your job. No. Autocrats don't like planning for stepping down from power or being removed from power. No, absolutely not.
So potentially there could be a battle amongst, I mean, not a physical battle, but, you know, there could be a real change of direction, or a similar person could come. Because, I mean, that's always the worry that you rightly say. People don't like President Putin now in the West, but you could get someone of a similar order or worse.
Yeah, I mean, Russians don't like chaos. They are very patient. They tend to be resigned to their fate until they suddenly erupt. But they've had so many decades of turbulence that they also tend to calm down. And what happens next after a period of revolution or popular upsurge is that the successor is just as bad. And the power structure is such that whoever takes over is likely to be an ultra nationalist, just as Putin is. So I'm afraid Russia's always going to be a problem, built the way it is at the moment, and linked to policies of friendship with China and hostility to the US. It's boxed itself into
Well, I
very
wanted to ask you.
dangerous.
I wanted to ask you about that, about being boxed in and being dangerous, because you alluded to President Putin locking himself away during the COVID years. There've been questions about his mental health, his physical health. Is he the most dangerous now? I mean, we've heard these crazy speeches, haven't we, where he's threatened potentially using nuclear weapons. How worried should we be by all of those threats?
I think he's unmoored from reality sufficiently to want to escalate things further. And I think that his position is so dependent on winning the war that he calls a special military operation, that he will be tempted to do very dangerous things. And we can't exclude the use of tactical nuclear weapons. But tactical nuclear weapons would have a consequence for the Russian interior, in which case it might be that members of his own elite say, we might like the fact that he's a real hard man on the Russian stage, but he's too dangerous even for us.